Hi, I'm Alan Gordon with the Sales Mastermind, and thanks for taking a few minutes to watch this video. This simple diagram explains the sales process. It's really not very complicated. See, salespeople are taught, as you were probably taught, to follow a specific process without really thinking about what the customer is experiencing. And new salespeople struggle with this process because the customer is constantly trying to wiggle their way out of it. They don't want to go along with you. Now, your manager's just going to tell you just have to work harder, close harder. But if you begin by understanding how the customer is feeling about the process, you're going to find your customers are going to be much more willing to go along with you. So here's me talking to you about the Sales Mastermind. And I'm telling you about all the incredible benefits and features that are inside the Mastermind. But from your perspective, here's you talking to your prospective customer about your great company and telling them about all the wonderful features and benefits that they're going to get when they buy your product or service. It's really simple. Your customer has a problem, a need, a pain point, whatever you want to call it, and you have a great solution if you can get them to trust you. Now, the line down the middle is really important in understanding the psychology of what your customer is going through. I call it the line of the unknown. Everyone on one side of the line is outside your company. They just don't know what your product or service is like. They don't have it yet. On the other side are all the people that do have the product or service. They're on the inside. So it seems obvious to me that the people on the outside have no way of knowing what's going on the inside. It's unknown, right? They haven't had the experience. And it doesn't matter how many times you explain the benefits, if they haven't experienced them, they really can't understand what all those features and benefits are going to be like. Now, this comes down to the reason why we actually need salespeople. Here's why. Because there are two universal reasons why qualified customers don't actually buy. The first is that they have what I call false assumptions. They think they know everything, but how could they know? Yet they're absolutely sure that they know everything about your product, your service, they know all about your company, they know all about the competition, and they can tell you exactly why it won't work for them. When, of course, they don't really know anything at all. So the job of the salesperson is to draw out these false assumptions and start replacing them with the facts. The second reason that qualified people don't buy is fear. They all have buying fears. Why? Because they're afraid of the unknown. Of all of the buying fears that people have, the most important one for you as a salesperson to understand is they're afraid of making a mistake. And especially in the modern world, right? Where customers have been conditioned to be skeptical. They've been burned before by salespeople and company just like yours. So they'd rather hold on to the problems that they know than let them go and make a mistake and possibly look foolish. All the objections you hear from this customer is nothing more than the manifestation of these false assumptions and fears. They're not going to tell you they're afraid. They're not even aware of the fear that's inside them. So they're going to tell you things like they need to think about it, or it's not a good fit, or the timing just isn't right, or it's too expensive, I can't afford it. The root of every objection is fear of making a bad decision. So your customers are regular people. It's okay. You got to let them have their false assumptions. It's okay. You got to let them have their buying fears. It's human nature to be afraid of the unknown. So they hold tightly to what they know and understand, even when there's a better option right there in front of them. See, when the tables are turned and you're on the buying side, guess what? You have the same buying fears, and so do I. We turn down opportunities that would have been great because we have false assumptions and buying fears. Your customers are just regular people, and they're understandably afraid of making a mistake. And very simply, here's your job description. Your job is to uncover all of these false assumptions and all these buying fears, and then take the fear out of the process so they can get out of their own head and move into a better space. And we do this by building trust. Trust is the key. Listening, asking questions, digging deeper. These are the most valuable skills you're ever going to learn because they're not just tools for salespeople. They apply to every aspect of your life. These are universal communication tools, building trust, listening, asking questions, digging deeper. See, before you can help somebody with their problems, you have to first earn their trust. Before you can solve your own problems, right? First, you're going to have to learn to trust someone to help you. And it's that understanding of human nature that's going to make you a better salesperson, a better business owner, a better parent, a better husband or wife. People resist change not because they're bad people, but because they're afraid of the unknown. So you always have to start by building trust. Now, when you start listening to people, when you start to tune into their wavelength and let them speak, it allows them to express and unload all of the psychic energy that they're holding on to. And all you're doing is listening and asking questions. You're allowing this process to unfold. See, here's what happens. When the fear is more powerful than the trust, they can't move forward. Psychologically, they're blocked by the fear. But when you start building trust, you're going to arrive at this moment when the trust begins to overpower their fears. Here's a real example, okay? The other day, last summer, I was at the swimming pool and I saw a child and the father was in the pool saying, "Jump, jump, jump, I'll catch you." But the child couldn't jump because of the child's fears. And the father kept saying, "Trust me, I'll catch you." Slowly, 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 the trust became stronger than the fear and the mindset begins to shift. And eventually, that child jumped into his father's arms. Well, in sales, you'll know when your customer has begun to trust you because they're going to start asking questions. Why do they ask questions? Because they've started to move into this unknown and they're willing to mentally explore it. But they have to ask questions to make sure and to double check that everything's going to be okay. So if I jump into the pool, everything's going to be okay. So they'll start asking about your warranty. Hey, if I don't like it, can I get my money back? Does it come in any other colors? What's the name of your company again? They'll start asking you questions because they're exploring. Questions are a psychological sign of interest. They're a buying signal. What it means is your customer has begun to trust you and they start to become willing to explore the unknown with you. See, I used to believe that the opposite of fear was courage. If I was afraid of doing something, all I needed was the courage to do it. But that's not actually true. I've come to understand it differently. The opposite of fear is trust. Because actually, it's easy to move into the unknown when you trust that you're going to be okay. And that's your job as a salesperson. It couldn't be any simpler. Your job is to make it okay for the person to move beyond the unknown and get themselves into a better situation. If you practice this over and over again and you start to learn how to build trust, you're going to start to see your customer's mindset shift as their fears diminish and the trust increases. The customer goes from resistant to curious to closed. And 90% of all salespeople skip this essential step of building trust. They think that sales is a numbers game, but it's not. Sales is a person-to-person connection. Your boss is going to tell you to work harder, get to work earlier, stay later, work nights, work weekends, buy more leads, triple your call volume, be a better closer. But the honest truth is, none of that is going to help you if you're not actually connecting with the people that you talk to. In fact, building this trust connection is the single most important step in the sales process. I call it your opening rate. How many people are you able to connect with? And don't worry whether they buy or not. Just learn to connect with them. Because as your trust building skills improve, your opening rate goes up. And when your opening rate goes up, every single time it will translate into a much higher closing rate. And by the way, with a lot less rejection, less stress, and a lot less negativity. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's always easy to build trust with people. If you've been in sales for any length of time, you know we meet all kinds of people as customers. Now, to borrow a phrase from the movie, customers are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. See, when the phone's ringing, I have no idea what mood the other person's going to be in when they answer. But regardless of their state of mind, regardless of their past experiences, their false assumptions, and all their fears. It doesn't matter their gender, their age, their race, religion, their politics, their background. Despite all of that, it's my job to build a bond of trust and help them through to the other side. So a lot of the training that you're going to see inside the mastermind focuses on this trust building, the customer psychology, word tracks, and question techniques that you can use to dig deeper into your customer's situation and thereby build trust. You're going to start to become comfortable opening conversations and building trust relationships with all different types of prospects. As you start down this path of trust-based selling, you'll see it for yourself. You'll see it all around you. 90% of salespeople move forward without first making a connection. They're hyper-focused on closing because that's all they've ever been taught. They don't bother to tune into the customer's wavelength. They don't know how to uncover their fears and false assumptions. So they just don't do it. They just move to the next step. See, this whole idea of building trust never occurred to them. They just start moving forward, and here's what happens. When they get to the close, they haven't built trust. So the customer has to think about it, or check out other options, or get another quote. The greater the fear, the greater the customer's fear, the harder it is for them to close, and the faster they're going to try to get away from you. Well, here's another way to say it. If you fail to build trust in the beginning and the middle of the call, you're not going to have the customer's trust when you're asking them to take action. This is when you need their trust. You build the trust in the beginning, you use that trust that you built up to close them. I cannot overstate how important trust is to sales. In fact, trust, as it turns out, goes way beyond sales. Trust is what I call a mastermind principle. Trust is the necessary ingredient in everything we do. Sales, business, personal relationships, they all depend on trust, don't they? And when you think about it for a minute, our entire society depends on trust. When you get on an airplane and you buckle your seatbelt, think about this. That airplane is 30 or even 40 years old. You have to trust the pilots, the mechanics, the airline, the air traffic controller, the FAA, hundreds of people you'll never ever meet. You have to trust that every single one of them did their job properly. When you're speeding down the highway, you have to trust that everyone else is following the rules just like you. A new driver that's never driven on the highway, they're petrified to get on the highway. Everyone's going so fast, what if somebody hits me? But with experience, you start to understand that everyone's going to stay in their own lanes. You trust that it's safe. And if you trust that it's safe, then it's something that's easy to do. Trust is the glue that binds us together as human beings, as a society, and it allows us to move forward into the unknown. Wherever you'll find trust, you're going to find a happy family, a successful business, a winning team, a prosperous and peaceful nation. But where there's no trust, you're only going to find fear and division. You've heard me say many times, I think everyone on the planet should learn how to sell. And here's why. There's a couple of reasons, but here's a really important one. Selling is a unique human skill. It's unlike anything else. It's the art and science of meeting a perfect stranger and building a situational trust relationship. The sales process is simple. You start by talking to somebody who doesn't want to talk to you. They just want to hang up. You help them work past their buying fears and their false assumptions. You help them solve a problem, and you move them into a better space. You end up with a customer and a friend. I want you to shift your mindset about selling into all positive. I want you to understand in your heart that other people, they're not difficult, they're not disagreeable, they're not the enemy, they're not liars. They're good people who are just afraid of the unknown like everybody else. And their fear manifests as resistance and objections. They want to solve their problem, but they can't solve their problem. They can't make a decision when they're blocked by their fears. So by building trust, you're going to help them in a positive way to move past those fears that are holding them back and into a better situation.